So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where Rushina has a civil war. Now, you guys absolutely... I didn't see it very well, but I've asked a lot of people on my Discord server, and you guys seem to love the Rushina videos. Now, I thought that a civil war would be not beneficial, but I thought a civil war would be a really cool video to make, so that's what we're going to do. Now, this video, of course, is inspired by my Discord server. The link will be in the description. It's basically run as Rushina over there. It's really big Discord server. Not really, it's not at all. But it's it's relatively small, but it's still cool. Anyway, now I'm just going to name these states to you. So we have Rushenzia, with the capital Rushenzia in it. Belton Island, Gardenia, Northern Rushina, the White Coast, West and South Rushina, Kata City, and Platinia Gardenia. That's a really complicated name. And then we have cities such as Kata City and Rushenzia. We're just going to include those two. So what actually happens for the Russian Civil War? Now, an election happens in Rushina. It's obviously between me, the president, and another party who form up. And basically they are like some sort of strict... And they're not... us as a country, we are a sort of socialist country. And they're communist. So they rise up. And their founding area is the White Coast. Now, states do begin voting on who they want to be basically in charge, whether they want the communists or socialists to be in charge of the country. And we see Northern Rushina and Platinia Gardenia all vote straight after that they want the communists to be in charge. This is the same with Eastern Rushina. And then finally, Gardenia also decides that they want the communists in charge. While Rushenzia, Belton Island, Kata City, and Southern Rushina all decide that they want basically the socialists to be back in charge and basically to be back in charge. So, one thing leads to another, a bit of a storming of the, let's say, palace that is at the place, and we basically see these guys up here fighting against the Russian military in support of, obviously, me. And we'll see how that goes. So, they sort of spark a rebellionist group down in this part of Rushenzia, which breaks away, and this kicks off the Russian Civil War. So, immediately we have Russian military troops crossing over, and they're technically invading a breakaway region or another country now. They push across and are trying to cut the country in, or cut the state in two, as they are now pushing down in the south and trying to push back this rebellionist group. They do so successfully, but the rebellions have started in Northern Rushina, and it's not looking good for Kata City. So they begin their push into Kata City, down by the coast and up through the northern part of Kata City. I think Kata City's here, so they basically begin to... Yeah, Kata City is there. So they basically begin to work their way down and try and angle it from a couple of angles. They push down from the north again, and are now looking like they're trying to cut Kata City into two. Eventually, Kata City is cut into two, and the city fully on surrenders. Now we have these front lines here. They're quite interesting. Battles are raging across the Russian front line as a new front is made up in Eastern Rushina, which is a really big state. I'd say the biggest states, or the top three biggest, are Gardenia, Platinia Gardenia, and Eastern Rushina. Now we see these advances speed up as the Russian military is now crossing over fully into Eastern Rushina. They see that if they capture most of the coast, they may have a good chance, but the basically all the military has been kicked out of all of the communism or the communist provinces. With this happening, they've basically stole all the military assets and are now beginning to bomb the capital Roshensia and Kata City. As Kata City is now back in control of the, let's call them Republicans or the Socialists. We'll call them the Socialists. And the Socialists completely kick out the Communists out of this sort of half of Kata City. Eventually, after a long bit of fighting in Kata City, we have Western and Eastern Kata City. These are two different states, and you already know stuff isn't going down well between these two. Constant fighting on the border. And I'll just show you where active fighting is. So, all along here, there is active fighting. That was a very big voice crack. Along in these regions here, not so much fighting is going on. Nothing's going on down here. And nothing's going on here, but there is some more fighting. There's a lot of fighting along this huge border here. There's a bit of a break here, but there's fighting along here and here. This here also needs to be coloured in too. So, we continue to see Rushina push up into Eastern Rushina, as Eastern Rushina is not, it's the biggest province, but it isn't the strongest. I'd say in order of poverty, these three are the poorest. Maybe not. I think these two are the poorest country. These two are the poorest ones. You're sort of average, you're average, you're average, rich, 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 rich. So more of the south is rich than the north. Anyway, so other stuff happens as the socialists are continuing to push up into Platinia Gordenia. Oh, my voice. And we see them eventually push back the rebellionist groups. It isn't going well for the communists as they see a sign of they're losing. So they get the navy out and they go after Belton Island. And this goes actually quite successfully. They push down, take, I think it's Capo Verde on this island, which is the basically state's capital. And it doesn't go the best for the socialists here. They've now been fully on invaded, and the communists are steaming down Belton Island, which isn't that protected, because it's like if you were to go on vacation, you'd either go Belton Island or Southern Rushina. You wouldn't go Roshensia, and you almost certainly wouldn't go Platinia Gordenia. Anyway, they continue to push down into Belton Island until basically Belton Island capitulates. And that is the first blue area to be taken. Red has a lot more land now than blues, or the communists do. So the socialists are now pushing up into Gordenia to try and knock that out. Now Gordenia isn't the strongest either. I'd say the strongest power on their team is probably the White Coast or Northern Rushina. You aren't that powerful at all. You're really, really badly weak. But you've got a lot of gold in you. Yeah. So, stuff continues to happen along the border until eventually one huge front line is set up in the middle of Gordenia, which conquers basically fighting, literally stretching hundreds of miles across Rushina. With this, basically, the Allies' goal, or the Socialist goal, is to link up the two fronts and basically cut off the rest, Southern Gordenia and this front here. And that's what they begin to do. The Socialists begin to push in here and also begin to push out from Kata City. While this is happening, the Communists get their forces together and begin to push them out of Eastern Rushina, pushing them all the way back to the border and down, finally beginning the invasion of Southern Rushina. They finally take a lot and take this part here, while pushing down into big parts of Southern Rushina. They nearly push across and cut it off, except for a small force that is holding them back, and they're just basically creating huge spearheads that are coming down, which is, we're going to ignore the background noise. So Kata City is the probably bloodiest battle, There are blue and red advances pretty much everywhere. And yeah, so we basically see a load of invasions happening, or a load of battling happening, which does capture Kata City once again. But the Socialists are holding out very well over here, even though they're getting invaded. Kata City does get cut in two, and it looks like this area is going to fall. So that is my cat. Oh my god, what are you doing? What are you doing, mate? Oh my god. What is my cat doing? Jesus Christ. He wants to go out. Okay. Let's continue on with the video. Jesus Christ. So, they may have been cut off, but a huge force is still here, which is basically blocking all the communists from storming into the socialist parts. They continue using all their force to try and link up, which would mean that they are finally united. And eventually this does go successfully. Gordenya is basically, all this part down here is still linked up until eventually it's cut off, and it just looks like a huge belly flop now. The communists have just lost a lot of southern land, with Belton Island basically just is being landed on, and because there's not barely any troops here, boom. So now what happens? So the southern part of Gordenya and Kata City are both freed. With this, it's looking like the blue team have a bit more of a chance, even though the red team still have more land since they've got these four, which are the biggest states. More invasions are basically concurring as they are pushing into Batini or Gordenya now. This isn't going very well for the communists as they're losing heavy support in the north and are now basically being invaded on pretty much all fronts. They lose their entire invasion after a huge capitulation down in southern Rushina, which causes an advancement to be made over the border, and they cross the border, which does cause a huge flop in southern Rushinian forces. Eastern Rushina, Gordenya looks like it'll fall, along with Eastern Rushina, then Putina Gordenya, then the White Coast, and then finally Northern Rushina. So they continue to push up into Gordenya until they hit the capital, which is, I think, there. So they begin to work their way around the capital, taking the coast of it and trying to landlock it. The troops, though, do push through into, or the communists do push through in to stop basically their capital, and they win the battle of outside of the outskirts, which does cause the blue team to get pushed back. Meanwhile, though, while this is happening, they are creeping up from the south, or they are creeping up from Putina Gordenya, as they're looking like now they're just going to cut across and boom, it'll be cut off. They do this and eventually are stopped as forces are there and they are pushing back the socialists. They do this quite well until eventually they are paused and a huge siege is done on this part of the Gordenya here. So what else is going on? I mean, the blue team are winning as they are now pushing further into Putina Gordenya. And this is at the point where the war gets very stale. Not a lot happens, just advances by the blue team and advances by the red team. And it's here that we finally see some sort of diplomatic solution. They are trying to work out peace treaty, but at the event of a peace treaty, the Secretary of Defense, or the Defense Secretary of the Republican, which call it Socialist, was assassinated by some guards, or by some terrorists that lives up here, which does cause them to call off the peace treaty, and fighting continues. More fighting continues until eventually this part of Putina Gordenya does fall apart, and Eastern Rushina does get basically invaded from another area. They are now looking like they're going to fall as an increasingly amount of troops are flooding in all along the coast. And it is here that the Gordenyan stalemate is broken as they now push further up into the capital. Eventually the Gordenyan capital is surrounded probably and does fall, which does cause the capitulation of Gardenia. Now the blue team have more land. So they push further into Platinia Gardenia and do manage to basically cut it in two. With this part falling, eventually Platinia Gardenia does fall. Followed by this, Eastern Rushina has a total war, and eventually huge riots break out, with the riots overtaking the military, and the Eastern Rushina just sort of collapses. Oh boy, these two are left. So, oh my god, voice crack. So what happened? So a huge speedy advancement is made into the White Coast, as most of their troops were just depleted, and the White Coast says screw it and just abandons them. And Northern Rushina sighs and just gives up. There you go, the Russian Civil War has ended. It lasts 2 years. Very painful 2 years, a lot of deaths, a lot of casualties, but here we go. So now the government is led by the socialists. The military has been ramped up in all of these areas, and all of these areas are basically made poorer and are now, have been, like, basically, they don't get to vote anymore, so all these areas do not get to now vote, which is quite costly. So if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. We are 4 subscribers away from 100. That would mean the world to me. Now, I have got the 100 subscriber special nearly ready. It will probably be out maybe a day after we hit it, or it might be out a couple of hours after we hit it. I'm not sure, but we'll just stick around for that. Make sure to join the Discord server in the link below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.